let's assume we're about 300 in this room, or 400. And let's assume you're all diasporans. Let's assume you come to Nigeria 3 times a year on holiday. And let's assume each time you come to Nigeria, you spend £3,000. Do that arithmetic. 400 people, £3,000 3 times a year. Look at what that will do to the economy of Edo State. So if all Asue and I do is create a secure Edo State, you guys will do the rest. Period. And I'll come to talk a bit more about that later. But we'll resuscitate our trust fund so that we can find money to do the things that are necessary to do to secure the state. We must use technology. We must recruit and train. You know, the Constitution of Nigeria is funny. It says the governor is the chief executive of the state and the chief security officer, but that governor has no troops. So within the constitution of the country, we must secure a safe state. One of the things that hurts and pains people the most is this issue of cultism and drug abuse in Edo State. We will deal with that issue decisively. We must make our state a secure state. Otherwise, nothing else will happen. You know, the easiest thing for Asue and myself to do is to make sure that we have security. After there's security in Edo State, we can go and sleep. Seriously. Because you guys, everybody else will do the rest. You will bring your money, you will bring your investment once you feel secure. And the thing that's most important to us in this issue of building a first world country is tourism. Let me must assure security so that when you step into Edo State, you feel secure, you feel safe. You invest in Edo State, you feel secure, you feel safe. Take that narrative and we must move into the first world. Asue and I am working with a great team of guys. We're looking at 5 things we're going to focus on. 5. And I'm going to run through the 5 things very quickly. There are 5 things that have come out of our discussion talking to our people in Edo State and finding out what everybody's pain points are and people's touch points are. The first thing truly is security. Many of you here stopped coming home. You are afraid, right? Madam, you fear? You fear me? Fear kidnapping, fear this, fear that, armed robbery. Abi, madam? You know, if we don't get security right, we're not going to get Edo State right. If we don't get security right, we're not going to get Nigeria right, period. So for us, we're determined to get security right. You know, one of the things I have never understood, who are medical students, and when we wanted to study, we used to go to the cadaver room. That's the room where they kept dead bodies, so people would disturb us while we were studying. The books they used, the anatomy book, their physiology book, their biochemistry book, the authorities named in those books, 20% to 30% of them were Nigerians. If you pick any medical book today, you wouldn't even find one Nigerian name. But what we'll do is make sure the well-being of our people is uppermost in our minds. Friends, in the 60s. In the 60s, the king of Saudi came to Ibadan for his medicals in the 60s. So how do you look at our country? A country where the king of Saudi came to us for medicals. To where we are. When I was thinking about the love of people, guys, you guys are enjoying. Our people are suffering. Even the person here who thinks he or she is the poorest, they're miles, light years ahead of our people who are suffering at home. We must change that. There are countries in this world where we technically don't have poor people. Nigeria has earned enough revenue over the last 70 years not to have poor people. But we still have poor people. So, we will work on producing hardship relief and grants to the poorest of the poor and the most vulnerable in our society. We will provide jobs, and when I start talking about the economy, you will see how. Irrigation, power, water. So what we need to do, and it's when we started going around campaigning that we realized the potentiality of the River Niger and the effect and the positive power it can have on Edo State. So we'll conduct our necessary feasibility studies, and we must create a massive blue economy in Edo State. Before I leave the issue of economy, electricity. After security, electricity. We have Oshomo, we have Azura. We have to find those investors that will come in. And one of my seniors in school was in the audience yesterday. And we have many more that we know who run infrastructure entities. What they need to know is that they can trust us in governance. If they trust us, they will move capital to us. And we will create a government that can be trusted and will be trusted. That strong government that is trusted will attract capital into Edo State. So help us God. Edo Central, Edo North. We will create economic development agencies in each territorial district so that we understand the comparative advantage of each territorial district. And we play on that comparative advantage and work it. So that comparative advantage helps the development of that territorial district. That is how we're going to ramp up Edo State into becoming a first world state, regardless of Nigeria. If Nigeria decides to stay third world, so be it. I wanted to talk about, I'm sure many of you, when you drive past Buckingham Palace, you wonder why all these Chinese and Indians are staring at the palace. You know, that's a £6 billion economy. All these Chinese and Indians and Vietnamese that come and stare at Buckingham Palace. If they come and stare at the palace of the Oba of Benin and the Otaro of Bauchi and some of the other cultural and traditional rulers we have, you know, we can easily create a $1 billion economy from Edo State just because they come to stare. You come. The Indians will come, the Chinese will come. But they will only come if Edo State is secure. That's why security remains my #1 issue. And those of you here, you will come home more often and you invite your friends who you work with to come and see the last true positive democracy monarchy in Africa. The greatest and best monarchy in Africa, the Benin Kingdom. You sell that story, your friends will come. And then there's the Otaro Bauchi. There's the Ososo Carnival. Edo State is a land of massive tourism. But because we fear, we don't come. Because it's hard, and it's at the point where the Benin port is at the point of execution. They're trying to raise capital. If we get that port right, all I will say is that it adds $8 to $10 billion to the economy of Edo State. So Saroju and I have a task to make sure we get that port right. That's the Benin port. It's not called Gelegele again, it's called the Benin port. One other thing very quickly, has worked on governance, and we will do much more. It's fundamental that we must create effective, good, accountable, accessible governance. You know, the fish rots from the head. If the head shows good example, the rest must follow. People talk about corruption. If the head is not corrupt, the others can be corrupt because you cane them. If you are not corrupt and people under you are corrupt, cane them. And they cannot be corrupt. It's not possible. We will not be corrupt. We will run an open and accessible government. I was telling them yesterday, I said, I thank God today Where's my wife? Today, I have one wife, I have one daughter. I know Osaro has slightly more than I. But by God's grace, our love for our people will ensure that we do the right thing by our people. I also said something yesterday, and it sounded so simple, but it's so true. You know, if every quarter I go to a local government headquarters and I say I'm there for 5 days, Osaro goes to another one and he says he's there for 4 days, you know that we will use other people's money to develop our states. So the people that want to see governor and deputy governor will come. Whilst they're there, they will stay in hotel. Whilst they're there, they will use phones, so they will build mass, MTN mass. And we won't see them quickly, we'll see them after 3 days. So they must spend 3 days there. So in those 3 days, they must spend money developing our states. Abroad develop China. The Vietnamese abroad develop Vietnam. You guys, Nigerians abroad, or Edolites abroad, must develop Edo. Again, I thank you guys for being here. I truly thank you. I see this as the first phase of our next phase. The Midwestern region was created in 1963, October 1963. For a time, the Midwestern region was ahead. For a time, the Midwestern region was ahead in academics. We created UNIBED, and within 5 years, it has become one of the top universities in Africa. Asue was the sports center of Africa. And between 1971 and about 1980, the Midwestern region, Midwestern state was top in academics, top in sports. What has happened to the Midwestern region, of which we're a substantial and integral part? Whatever that has happened to the Midwestern region, we must reclaim. Edo State must bring it back. So we'll focus on agriculture, and let me let out a little secret. If you go to northern Edo, there's nearly no mineral resource that you can't find there. Gold, feldspar, lithium, nearly none. And we haven't tapped that resource. What about our talent economy? I was showing Rima, I was showing Charlie Bobby. We have the WIFO Center. The WIFO Center has a production studio that's #1 production studio in Africa. How well are we tapped it? And let me come back to tourism. And I must say this, if the Chinese could do it, Singaporeans with no resource other than the brains of their people and the fact that they were by the sea could do it. What about us in Edo State, where we were so blessed by God Almighty? We're blessed by intelligent, hardworking people. We're blessed by great resources. We're blessed by fertile soil. We have the greatest gas concentrate and gas reserves in Nigeria, and that makes us one of the greatest gas reserves in Africa and in the world. How come it affects our growth? If you guys stop investing, it affects our growth. What we will promise is create an enabling environment and a secure environment, because you must come back home. You guys have developed capabilities and capacities, bring it home to train our own people. Doctors, nurses, engineers, businessmen, creatives, come back home and develop us. We will create an environment, and we all know what has happened to the environment, climate change and all of those issues. We must rebuild our environment, so that we create a world that our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren can live in well. Antoinette read a poem, and I want her to be happy growing into a woman, growing into womanhood, growing into mother, becoming a grandmother, and being strong. So we must create that kind of environment for them. What we promise is that we'll make you proud. We'll be accountable, we'll be accessible, we'll govern with honesty and integrity.
Thank you for tuning in to Nigeria Magazine's YouTube channel. Stay connected, stay informed, and stay inspired with the latest from Nigeria. Remember to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to stay updated.